how do we get to your goals? How do we create the person that you want to be? How do you take the understanding of yourself from the past to understand where you are, to create a pathway to understand to where you want to go? And that's what personal development is. Can you subjectively and objectively at times look at yourself to create a pathway to where you want to be? You're listening to the Think Unbroken podcast, where our mission is to give you the tools to heal, overcome the past, get unstuck, and become the hero of your own story. I'm your host, Michael Unbroken, author, speaker, coach, and advocate for adult survivors of childhood trauma. It's our mission to end generational trauma in our lifetime through education and information. Thank you so much for being here, being a member of the Unbroken Nation, and learning how to become unbroken. Please do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you take 30 seconds, leave a review for the show on iTunes so that other people can find this information, and check out our YouTube channel if you just search Think Unbroken. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the show. And so when you're thinking about where you're at in your life now, and this is why I'm asking if this hits home for you or not, is have you had to define the person that you are today? Was there a practice? Did you write something? Did you create something? Like, how did you become the Colin you are today?
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with not necessarily like writing out or mapping out or defining like who I am, but realizing what things don't define me. And I think that's where things really changed, So early in my career and even early in entrepreneurship, like I let my successes and my mistakes or failures or whatever you want to call them, challenges, I let those sort of define me. And that can really take you to a dark place. So if it was a great month, then I felt great. If it was a bad month, I felt horrible. And so, you got to learn that those things don't define you, right? So your successes and your failures don't define you, and that can that can be a hard thing to actually conceptualize, like, because we're so accustomed in society like to be defined by what we have or how much is in the bank or how great we look on social media or how many likes and comments and engagements we got or how many downloads and listens we have on our podcast. Like we let a lot of those things define us, positive things and negative, but you know those are all just like a lot of vanity metrics. And like, yes, we all need money and we all want to be successful and we all have these big goals that we're trying to accomplish and we need fuel to move forward towards them. But it's a emotional roller coaster if you let those things define who you are and how you actually feel about yourself.
How do you correlate this idea of creating purpose while understanding that achievements are okay and not get lost in the scope of it all?
Yeah, I think that's where what guys have to do is really seek to find their purpose where they have it within, where my validation comes from within. Because then what happens is you can go for the achievements, you can make achievements happen because those don't own you. Those don't bring that sense of validation. So when you make an achievement, you're excited because of what it does for everybody, not just you. You benefit from it, and that's not a bad thing, but your purpose is not the validation. It's kind of like the difference between a race and a journey. What I tell men is life is a journey. It's not a race. There's really not a finish line that you cross. It's not going to be that, hey, when you hit 50, if you're independently wealthy and can retire anywhere in the world, you've won. No, you've hit 50, you may have a lot of money, but what else do you have? And that's what we have to understand is that for every man, life is a journey and they want to do a journey that's worthwhile. Almost every man I've talked to and coached and helped, they want to do something worthwhile with their life. It may not be changing the world, but it could be changing their community. It could be changing their family. It could be changing themselves so they can impact other people. Some men that I've worked with, they get to that point where they realize, I'm a selfish pig. All I do is think about me. And that's a huge revelation for them, especially if there's someone who has a family. And if they start focusing on their wife, if they start focusing on their kids, what can I do to impact their life? Then they will be completely transformed because they've kind of taken themselves out of the picture and they see themselves living for that other person. So they may get the achievements they want. They may get a happy marriage. They may have great kids who love them and they have a good relationship with. And those are great things. But they get those not because they're just trying to do that, because they're trying to make a big purpose in the world and change other people.
Hey, Unbroken Nation, we'll be right back to the show, but I wanted to let you know that you can grab a copy of my first book, Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma, for free. If you go to book.thinkunbroken.com, you can download the PDF ebook version of the book and get everything that I know about the baseline of healing trauma for free, downloaded to your email right now. Just go to book.thinkunbroken.com to download your copy of Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma for a PDF for your phone. Again, that is book.thinkunbroken.com. There are so many people who right now, they have this dream, they have this idea, and they haven't gotten honest with themselves. How
Yeah.
much has honesty played a role in this journey for you?
Oh, that's huge. I think that's one of the most important parts of it. There's a lot of little components of, living your life a certain way to get certain results. But if you can't be honest with yourself, you're going to stay stuck in a paradigm that doesn't serve you. Going in a loop, right? Because I've had conversations with friends who have been in challenging positions, and my first thing that we get down to, because they're going, well, because of this and because of that and all these things, I'm like, buddy, I'm like, you're blaming everyone but yourself. I'm like, you have got to be able to look in the mirror and be honest about who you are, why your life looks the way it is, and that you're the only one that is responsible for it based on the decisions that you make, right? A lot of people don't want to sit down and feel the emotions tied to unpacking the past or looking at who they really are and why, because it's uncomfortable sometimes. But until we can do those things, we cannot be fully accountable. And then we can't make decisions from a more honest, genuine place that will serve us.
So often about this relationship between man and nature and the importance in that, and managing and mitigating stress, depression, anxiety, all of those things, and looking at this in consideration of this mismatch that we're now living in, these forest bathing animals now being in concrete jungles. What are the consequences of that?
Right. Well, we have a whole cluster of consequences. And the most obvious one is now that we're exposed to chronic stress versus what we had in prehistory, which was in general episodic stress. And that's the way the body works best, is that you have this autonomic nervous system that scans the world for threats. And maybe you encounter a predator, maybe you have some episode that's highly stressful and you survive it. You go back to camp and you rest for a few days in a low stress setting, and the nervous system resets itself. And then you go back out hunting and gathering again. So that episodic stress is a normal pattern for humans and non-human animals. But now in the modern world, we have a completely different setting, and stress tends to be chronic for people. And the autonomic nervous system now is working overtime to compensate for that. And as a result, we tend to be hypervigilant. We tend to be um, anxious and ultimately exhausted and depressed. So this cluster of symptoms and afflictions is actually really understandable when you look at it through the lens of mismatch. It's not at all surprising that people are experiencing these things now. What is surprising is that so many people do manage to adapt to the modern world. And the life lesson here is really clear, that if you are experiencing these symptoms, there's really nothing wrong with you. And it's to be expected. You take an animal, you take your dog and put your dog in the garage for 2 weeks. He's living in an alien environment. He's going to have behavior problems. He's going to have other kinds of problems. And that's absolutely a normal reaction of a normal animal to an abnormal environment. So the life lesson here is to give yourself some compassion and give the people around you some compassion as well, because we're all fighting the same battle here. We're all trying to integrate into this alien world, and some people do better than others.
Thank you so much for listening to Think Unbroken. Please share this episode with someone who could use it and help us move forward in our mission of ending generational trauma in our lifetime. And if you would, please take 5 seconds to pop on iTunes or Spotify, hit that 5-star, leave a review, and you can also reach out to us on social at Michael Unbroken or at Think Unbroken. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel at Think Unbroken. Thank you for being a part of Unbroken Nation, my friends, and until next time, be unbroken.